Well, gird your loins, square your shoulders. Hostel Part 2 is coming to a cinema near you. In the 20...
Okay, Carly.
Driving lessons is in limited release from tomorrow. Well, gird your loins, square your shoulders. Hostel Part 2 is coming to a cinema near you. In the 2005 original, a village in Slovakia played host to an international private club of people rich enough to pay to torture and kill young travellers. 3 young American lads were on a journey to hell. In this sequel, the gender has turned. It's Rich Beth, Lauren German, Wild Whitney, Bijou Phillips, and boringly virginal Lorna, Heather Matarazzo, who find themselves seduced towards the hot springs of Slovakia, and a whole lot more.
Hey, did she call?
No, I just checked.
I love that Lorna's the only one of us that got any action last night.
Hey, I tried.
Keep trying.
Yeah, she'd say this place is majestic.
Sure.
Oh, I bet she's making him breakfast for you.
No, I bet she's in a coma.
As soon as they hand over their passports at the by now notorious Hostel, their pics are beamed around the world and an auction is on. The highest bidder turns out to be Todd, Richard Berge, who secures Whitney for himself and Beth for his friend Stuart, Roger Bart. But first, the ritual.
I think I'm going to pass on the tattoo.
Come on, man, sit down.
Oh, man, the tattoo's, it's not really me. It's not my style. And I didn't know. And I don't like needles. I don't like needles very much.
Dude, what are you doing? Sit down.
Everyone must get tattooed. Part of contract.
Yeah. Stu, come on, man. Would you sit down? These guys aren't playing.
Is there any problem here?
No. I didn't know that this was part of it. So.
Stuart, this is not like going to a whorehouse. You can't just back out.
This is really sicko stuff in a lot of ways. Although I must say I didn't find it as scary as the first because you know where you're going with this one, to blood and gore and the depths of human depravity. Writer-director Eli Roth has the enthusiastic support of executive producers Quentin Tarantino, Boaz Yakin and Scott Spiegel. Roth's undoubtedly a good visual director. It's just what he puts in the frame that you might have a problem with. I don't know that this film gains by letting us get to know the people who sign on for this sort of sport. They're quite uninteresting and a bit cliched. The gender change made me slightly uncomfortable as well, as did one scene with the feral kids from the town. In the original Hostel, I felt there was a subtext of America's fear of the world post 9/11 and the world's animus towards Americans. Is Hostel Part 2 about American naivety, America's fear, America being ultimately seduced to the dark side? Or is it merely a blood-soaked, and I mean sodden, slasher thriller? David?
Well, I asked those questions myself. I didn't like the first one at all, but at the same time, you know just by looking at it that Eli Roth is talented. I mean, he's not a hack. He makes films in an interesting way, a very visual way. He uses the widescreen very well, and it's the same here with this one.
And he gets good performances out of people.
He gets very good. I mean, and so
they scream really well.
So you really feel, why is he doing this? I mean, why this kind of extreme violence? I mean, surely suspense, the creation of suspense without showing all the blood and gore, traditionally was much more exciting and much more interesting. But it seems today audiences want this kind of thing, and that, I think, should be a bit disturbing for all of us.
Well, you know, it's not like it is that explicit, but it's sort of like so close to the bone, and the situations, situations are actually, you know, sort of like the sort of things that are terrifying to us. That sense of being powerless at the hands of a sadist.
And it's interesting that you said that you thought the change in sex this time, it was sort of, in a way, easier to take when they were 3 guys, but now they're 3 girls. It's kind of more traditional. I mean, it's usually the women that are subjected to this.
Yeah, I know, but it's sort of like this is a film, you know, made by all these boys, and there's just something a little bit worrisome, I think, about this. But I know that you talked to Eli Roth, and I really am keen to hear what he has to say about his films.
Well, we'll hear that in a minute, but first of all, what's your score?
I gave the first one 2, and I'm going to give this one 2 as well.
Can't remember what I gave the first one, but I'm giving this one 2 as well.
Remember when I said that I didn't know what I was doing here? Well, this is what I'm doing here.
What is this place?
This place. People come here. People come here to kill people.
What? Who kills? Oh my God, are they gonna kill us?
Well, not us.
Oh my God.
At first, I was writing and I was thinking, God, how am I going to top the eye-gasm? And how am I going to make it gory? And how am I going to make it scary? And then it was kind of paralyzing me. I said, you know what? Don't think of that. Just think, there's no credits on Hostel. What happens next? Let's continue the story. And I used the benefit of having watched the film with audiences around the world, and I saw what worked and what didn't work. And the stuff that didn't work, I really tried to drop and really tried to, and I looked at sequels that I loved, like Road Warrior and Aliens. I think that Road Warrior is the greatest sequel ever made. I think it's a masterpiece.
Mad Max 2 in Australia.
I'm sorry, yeah. I think that Mad Max 2 is the greatest sequel ever made. And one of the reasons is because George Miller came back to direct it. That and Empire Strikes Back are probably the greatest sequels ever made. And I said, how can I do a horror movie that makes me feel the way I felt when I came out of Road Warrior, Mad Max 2. And I started thinking, I looked at the scenes that I thought worked the best. I mean, everybody loves the eye-gasm, the gore stuff, the girls getting run over, the violence. That played all around the world. The scene that really scared people the most was the scene in the locker room where the American client is going, Rick Hoffman's going, how do you do it? Do you kill him fast? Do you kill him slow? I watch audiences in every country around the world. People come up to me going, that really disturbed me. And they go, I want to see a movie about that guy. And I go, I do too. I could see a whole movie about Rick Hoffman. So I started thinking about that, about what stuff do I want to expand on. I said, let's see what happens when girls go through. Let's continue the Jay Hernandez story. Let's introduce girls going there. Why are they there? How do they get lured? And I also want to follow the clients. I wanted to, and that's what Quentin said. Quentin's like, I want to know about the minutia. How does that place work? Let's learn everything about the organization. How do you pick your victims? How do you bid on them? What happens when you get there? And can you dress them? Can you meet them beforehand? What's the whole thing like from that point of view? And let's, instead of following it just from the guys, the first one, let's follow different stories till they all converge in this horrible place, and let's just make a better, scarier movie.
Why are audiences today, young audiences especially I guess, why are they getting off on this extreme violence?
There's a whole generation now that was 10 years old when 9/11 happened, and now they're 16 and 17, and they have grown up with being told you're going to get blown up, terror alert orange. There are people, for all they know, every time you fly on a plane, you take off your shoes and you x-ray them, which for me is crazy, but then you think, Jesus, are we going to get blown up? I mean, there's a generation of teenagers out there that have only flown on airplanes being told you're going to get blown up, and they want to scream about that. And this war has gone on forever that nobody wanted, this strange war overseas where these horrible people are coming back. Like more and more people, everybody now knows somebody whose brother and sister is over in Iraq, and people are coming up with blown up, and the type of violence that they need to see in a movie to stimulate them, that they react to, is what they're reacting to, what they've seen in their own lives. They want to be shocked that way so they can scream about it.
Do you also play a bit on the naivete of Americans when they travel? I mean, the fact that
Absolutely.
Americans don't know much about the rest of the world.
12% of Americans own a passport. I mean, I always say it's like a horror version of Borat in that, it's not about Borat, it's not about Kazakhstan, it's really about America. And I said that Hostel is not a movie about Slovakia. Slovakia and Amsterdam and all the other cultures are American stereotypes of those cultures. And the Americans pay for those stereotypes. They believe the girls in Slovakia are beautiful and going to just marry them and want to have sex with them because they're American, and they take advantage of it, and they get tortured to death for it. The portrayal of the Americans in Hostel and Hostel Part 2, that's what's accurate. And I think that, that's what the movie's about. They're told in Hostel 1, ever since the war, there's no guys. You go there, the girls will be throwing themselves, so the guys go. And then the girls in Hostel 2 are like, wasn't there a war there? And they're like, no, there hasn't been a war there in 50 years. So they're told the truth, but it just shows the American ignorance on both sides. And Americans really don't know anything, and they don't really care about other cultures.
Some interesting insights from Eli Roth, the writer-director of the Hostel films, and Hostel Part 2 is in cinemas from tomorrow. The Sydney Film Festival gets underway this Friday with the opening night film La Vie en Rose, an intimate portrait of Edith